And the fact is, you, Robert Donaldson, failed to bring any experts to the stand to negate the prosecution's experts. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to bring up Sophia's history of a large head circumference. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to let the jury know that Sophia's neck and spine were intact with no fractures or dislocations. You, Robert Donaldson, allowed Pennsylvania State Trooper Kimberly Ronan to give her opinion of what happened to Sophia to the jurors. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to question why Jennifer's interview at the jail on August 25th, 2016 was not recorded. The one that your client insists she was coerced into a false confession. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to point out the many, many falsehoods written in Harry Kamerow's expert report. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to question Adelaide Eichmann on how she was trained to know that 2 bruises on the side of someone's head are a result from being shaken. You, Robert Donaldson, allowed the judge to bring up the term shaken baby syndrome to the jury. You, Robert Donaldson, failed Jennifer Medzie. And you, Robert Donaldson, failed baby Sophia. Those are the facts. Hello, my name is Lindsay Ann, and this is Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors on YouTube. If you haven't already done so, please click my logo below and subscribe to Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors. It's free, and your subscription will help get Jennifer's story to more people. People who are going through a similar situation. Maybe someone listening is in an abusive relationship or is witnessing abuse and doesn't know what to do or what the consequences might be for not reporting the abuse. Please like and subscribe. In episode 18, you heard testimony from 2 of the 3 medical experts called by the prosecution. You saw photos of bruises, heard about a lawsuit due to Dr. Adelaide Eichmann's false child abuse charges, and much more. And today, I will discuss what the prosecution's expert, Harry Kamerow, testified to in court. Remember him? He's the one with the bogus report, in my opinion, that happened to have the opinion that the prosecution absolutely needed. It's all really shady to me. Let's dig in. Bill Shaw called Dr. Kamerow to the witness stand, where he covered his employment and responsibilities in the medical field. Harry Kamerow testified to being a partner in Center Pathology Associates, which is a group of pathologists in Center County, Pennsylvania. They run laboratories at 3 local hospitals: Mount Nittany Medical Center, J.C. Blair Memorial Hospital, and Tyrone Hospital. Kamerow confirmed that performing autopsy is a relatively big part of his practice. Harry Kamerow went through his educational history, his certificates, and that he has a license to practice in the state of Pennsylvania. And then Bill Shaw asked this of the witness, quote, "So, Dr. Kamerow, let me ask you then, as a sequence of your education, training, and experience, do you have specialized knowledge that enables you to give an opinion regarding the cause and manner of death of a specific individual?" End quote. To which he replied, "Yeah." And then the court recognized Harry Kamerow as an expert in this case. Commonwealth's Exhibit 27 is the report Kamerow authored on June 2nd, 2016, concerning the death of Sophia Hoffman. Shaw wanted to know what Harry Kamerow thought was notable regarding his review of Sophia's medical records. Y'all, Harry likes to talk and talk and talk. I'm going to summarize all of this for you. He went over the October 8, October 11, November 6, and November 14 doctor visits. Then he discussed the November 15 emergency at Clearfield Hospital, where it was noted that Sophia had bruises on her right cheek, left temple, and left side of her chin. Her eyes were described as bruised, which corresponds to the raccoon eyes. Her eyes were fixed and dilated pupils. She was noted to be pale, and her heart rate was slow, and she had a low respiratory rate. Sophia's chest x-rays were negative, and a flat plate of the abdomen was negative. The CT scan at Clearfield Hospital showed extensive bleeding on the surface of the brain and extensive subdural hemorrhage on the right side. The scan also showed a midline shift and increased swelling. Kamerow testified to Sophia's CT scan of her spine being reasonable, and it appeared that Sophia had a lot of distress. Her lactate level and white blood count were both normal. However, Sophia appeared to have been anemic. Now, due to the above information that I just read, Sophia was then life-flighted to Pittsburgh. She arrived in Children's Hospital with fixed and dilated pupils, which were never recovered. She never moved on her own, and she never breathed on her own. A CT scan revealed a diffuse brain edema. And Kamerow stated, quote, "Subdural hemorrhage is almost always due to some trauma, head trauma," end quote. He went on to testify that Sophia had bilateral retina hemorrhages and states Adelaide Eichmann wrote out they are, quote, "most consistent with non-accidental head trauma / infant syndrome." And Harry himself also stated retinal hemorrhaging is, quote, "most often child abuse," end quote. And then Harry Kamerow told the jury that inflammation was found in the right lower lobe lung, and there was hair loss. The toxicology exam found a therapeutic level of Dilantin, a drug used to control seizures. He claims that this is provided to her by the medical staff. There was also a small amount of acetone present, which Kamerow told the jury was, quote, "not really an issue here," end quote. Next, Dee and I will read from the transcript.
Anything that is important, I know you're being very meticulous, and I appreciate that. What is germane really to your ultimate conclusion?
The most important facts in this case are severe, extensive subdural hemorrhage, hemorrhage within the brain, subarachnoid hemorrhage, and severe brain edema. Those four facts, along with subdural hemorrhage, which is what is required to come to the diagnosis, the fact that on review of slides, multiple sections of other organs were normal also is a critical fact, because that review substantiates that the patient did not have an underlying alternative disease process to explain the findings at hand.
Okay, so is it fair to say that you personally reviewed all of these medical records and tests and exams from her medical record?
Correct.
And based on your examination of the documents, review of the records of the tests and exams, are you then able to give us an opinion as to the cause and manner of death for Sophia Hoffman?
Yeah.
What would your opinion be?
The cause of death, as listed by the pathologist, is fine. I agree with that. global hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, the manner of death is homicide. Bill Shaw was curious as to how he came to the conclusion of cause and manner of death. Kamerow said that the manner of death is never assigned simply in isolation. And then he stumbled on his words a little bit, saying, quote, and to almost, I shouldn't say that, always, I do not assign a manner of death without getting a complete history, end quote. A complete history? It appears to me the only history of Sophia that he based his opinion on was the history from November 14 through 17 of 2013. He went on to say that the pathologist who rendered Sophia's cause of death recognized correct pathology. So right here, you guys, Harry Kamerow is admitting that the cause of death is not always the same from one pathologist to another. And then he said this about Sophia's manner of death. Quote, manner of death is determined by seeing that in the gross and the microscopic and understanding the clinical history. And this clinical history overwhelmingly indicates homicide. That's why the manner of death is homicide, end quote. This so-called expert, Harry Kamerow, then stated in part, quote, Sophia Hoffman has evidence of trauma from multiple directions. The patient has a bruise here and a bruise here, a contusion here, has extensive hemorrhage underneath the dura mater. The patient is not septic. The patient doesn't have leukemia or lymphoma. So if you go through diseases that might be related to this, none of them are supported by the autopsy and none of them are supported by the history, end quote. Hold on. You know what else is not supported by the autopsy? Sophia being violently shaken. He continued on to the history, stating that Sophia was seen on November 14th and was normal. Stop! Just stop with the lies. Sophia was not normal on the 14th of November. I have her medical record where it clearly states she had a bruise on her forehead, she was vomiting, nauseous, and her hair was falling out. The fact is, Sophia's health was never normal. From the day she was born until the day she died, Sophia was a sick little girl who was failed by so many. And then Harry said, quote, the patient was seen by her father at 500 hours on the 15th. No reported distress. Again, not true. Cody admitted that she was wheezing that morning from her congestion. And then listen to what this expert says next to the jury. Quote, so you take your clinical history, you take your medical information, and you take your autopsy findings, and then, and only then, do you get the manner of death. Given all of those facts, single directional trauma did not occur in this case. This is not a single vector blow to the shoulder, or to the head, or to the chest. This is multiple blows from multiple vectors, causing multiple foci of hemorrhage in the brain, on the surface of the brain, below the scalp. So we have a model that fits these anatomic findings, and the only model that fits these findings is assault. anybody with such significant trauma is going to be symptomatic immediately. A 2-year-old is going to feel pain. They are going to cry or move around and relieve some of the sites that are painful, particularly where you have contusions and significant head trauma, end quote. And then Harry Kamerow totally contradicted his written expert report by saying, quote, immediately, you're going to know the child is injured. That's for sure. The time for ultimation can be as little as 30 minutes or whatever, and then a few hours after that, end quote. Y'all, right here is what he wrote in his expert report. Quote, she was symptomatic in terms of intense head pain within multiple minutes, greater than 1 minute and less than 10 minutes after sustaining the injuries. She sustained severe head trauma due to the assault and became symptomatic within multiple minutes after the assault, end quote. When Bill Shaw asked about this discrepancy, Harry Kamerow took a look at his report and he said, quote, okay, yeah, so she is going, that's a good sentence. She was symptomatic in terms of intense head pain within multiple minutes, greater than 1 minute. I would assume that I'm not assuming anything. If you're examining a child and taking care of her, and that child had those injuries, certainly within a few minutes, you're going to know something is horribly wrong. She's going to be crying, whimpering, turning over, trying to avoid pain from the different blows, end quote. How is this guy an expert? As of this recording, Harry Kamerow is still a practicing pathologist. Shameful and extremely scary, in my opinion. In her interrogations, multiple interrogations, hours of interrogations, Jennifer said over and over and over again that Sophia did not cry that morning. And there was no blood on her. Plus, the nurse on the 14th noted bruising on her forehead the night before all this allegedly happened. Now let's see how Jennifer's attorney, Robert Donaldson, tears into this expert and catches him in all his bogusness. Take a listen as Dee and I read directly from the court transcript.
Doctor, good afternoon. Am I to understand you testified in great detail? Your report is really based on all the information you are able to gather from different sources on this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
You didn't examine the body or anything?
No.
And so when we look at your report and go back to, it's on page 2 of your report. That last paragraph on the page, when Sophia arrived on November 15th at Clearfield Hospital, she revealed small bruises on the right cheek, left temple, and chin. Do you see that?
I'm on page 2. What paragraph?
It's last paragraph.
Got it.
And you indicate from the report that you read that there were small bruises on the right cheek, left temple, left chin. There was no bruising on the right side of her temple.
That's correct.
I guess the last question I have is that you don't want to give a manner of death without a complete history. I assume you are satisfied that you have given this case a good look at her complete history.
I'm satisfied that the medical record, the interviews, and the autopsy findings hold together in the sense that there may be small discrepancies, but the general facts of the case are replicated in all of these discussions. Yes, and I believe that it is a complete record.
So the main difference between the original death certificate that said the manner of death was undetermined and your analysis is that you determine that the manner of death is a homicide.
Rephrase your question, please.
Well, my question was, if the original death certificate says the manner of death was undetermined back in 2014, and now the only difference between that, you agree on the cause of death, but you disagree on the manner of death because it was marked undetermined. And now you are saying your conclusion is it was a homicide.
Yes, I can state with detail what I reviewed. I am not commenting one direction or the other as to the person who signed that death certificate, what he reviewed. I know what I reviewed. So yes, what I can tell you is my opinion is in terms of manner of death, and I can tell you what I reviewed and the evidence therein to lead to that conclusion. Whether the person who signed the death certificate reviewed all of this in total, I do not know.
Well, I'm not asking you that. But again, you would agree his manner of death was undetermined.
I agree that's what the death certificate says.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You guys, I wish I could say, just kidding, after that. But it's not a joke. That is seriously all that Donaldson discussed with Kamerow. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the worst show of an attorney that I've ever heard. This was Donaldson's chance to debunk everything and get his client home. He blew it big time, in my opinion. You know what? Remember all of this from episode 13 of this series when I noted the many falsehoods and biases in Kamerow's expert report? Dated June 2nd, 2016, and addressed to William A. Shaw. Harry Kamerow comes out of the gate with his first two false statements. Quote, her, Sophia, father was awarded custody in February 2013, end quote. And, quote, Jennifer Medzie moved into the house trailer in Clearfield County on September 13, 2013, end quote. We all know by now. According to Sophia's father, Cody Lauder's Facebook post, he was given custody of Sophia on May 20th, 2013, not February. And this is the first time I've ever heard an exact move-in date for Jen. I know it might seem trivial or minor, but you guys, this is an expert opinion. The documents that he states rendered his opinion are the same ones I have. And I cannot find anywhere that a move-in date was ever stated. I can only find when Jen and Cody both say that she moved in the middle or end of September. I'm curious as to how Harry was able to nail down an actual date of September 13. He then writes a paragraph talking about the 4 times that Sophia saw a doctor in October and November of 2013. When describing her visit to the Du Bois Regional Medical Center the night before her collapse, he states, quote, a careful neurological exam was performed. This child's neurologic exam was entirely unremarkable. No x-rays were felt to be indicated by the treating physician. End quote. Harry then talks about the morning of the collapse. November 15, 2013. He begins with, quote, her father awoke at 500 hours on November 15, 2013 and checked on his daughter. She was sleeping without distress. End quote. However, in the transcripts provided to Harry Kamerow that he claims to have reviewed, Cody states this about checking on Sophia that morning.
And what was she doing when you checked on her that morning?
She was on her left side sleeping how she normally does, just a little bit of wheezing going on from being congested or whatever.
Next in the report, he discusses the exam and its results in the emergency department at Clearfield Hospital. Then Harry writes this, quote, "On arrival at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, the history delivered to the treating physicians was that Sophia fell on November 1st, 2013, hit her head, and had a negative CT scan of the head," end quote. There is zero documentation that I have of Sophia falling, hitting her head, and getting a CT scan on November 1st, 2013. According to medical records, the 4 times Cody or his stepmom brought Sophia to the doctor were October 8th and 11th and November 6th and 14th. In fact, I cannot find anywhere that Sophia had a CT scan of her head prior to November 15. She had facial x-rays at her appointment on October 8th, 2013, but no CT scan is documented that day, let alone on November 1st, 2013. There is no record of Sophia Hoffman falling, hitting her head, and having a negative CT scan on November 1st, 2013. And y'all, this is Bill Shaw's expert. 7 sentences later, Harry Kamerow writes this, quote, "Sophia hit her head on a coffee table 2 weeks prior to death. It reports that a CT scan was performed at that time and was negative," end quote. I have looked and looked and looked again at the thousands of pages I have, and I cannot see anywhere in Sophia's medical records that she had a CT scan performed prior to her collapse on November 15. I wonder where those images are, if it truly occurred. The CT scan from the 15th is quite detailed, you guys, with imaging to accompany the notes. I believe it would be really hard for me to miss the other CT scan Kamerow mentions, but I definitely could have. At the end of this paragraph, Harry Kamerow, the expert, writes this, quote, "Be this as it may, one note is particularly important in terms of your query. The ophthalmologist performed a consult and found extensive bilateral retinal hemorrhages, most consistent with non-accidental head trauma, shaken infant syndrome," end quote. I wonder why Harry Kamerow never stated that Sophia's neck and spine were intact in that paragraph. I wonder if that's because you cannot shake a baby to death and her neck and spine are not affected. The next part of the report made me incredibly angry. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. "And after watching or listening to parts 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11 of this series, I'm guessing you will be just as angry." Harry Kamerow states, quote, "I have reviewed multiple transcribed interviews in this case. At 12:33 hours on November 15, 2013, Miss Medzie reported that Sophia hit her head off the coffee table, quote, 3 to 4 times in the past month, end quote. On November 16, 2013, Dr. Adelaide Eichmann reported extensive brain injuries, bruises on each side of the head from being violently shaken, and opined that Sophia would be unconscious within minutes with such severe traumatic injury. Dr. Eichmann specifically states she saw retinal bleeding. She also reports that the CT scans revealed subdural hemorrhage and edema. An interview with Ms. Schaefer on February 12, 2014 indicates she was visiting Sophia's home on the evening of November 14, 2013. Ms. Schaefer reports that Sophia's father, Cody, said that if Miss Jennifer Medzie did not like watching Sophia, she could pack her shit up and get out. And Interview on November 18, 2014. Yes, that's an error. He should have said 2013. With Miss Jennifer Medzie indicates Miss Medzie admitted shaking Sophia twice in November of 2013. Please note that Miss Jennifer Medzie met Sophia's father in July of 2013 and moved into Sophia's home in September of 2013, end quote. So in the 371 pages of transcribed interviews and nearly 11 hours combined of Cody and Jen being interviewed, this is what caught expert Harry Kamerow's attention. I wonder why he pointed out Jen saying Sophia hit her coffee table 3 or 4 times in the past month, when his next sentence states Sophia was violently shaken and that she would have been unconscious within minutes. And if his goal was to provide a pattern for the readers, then why wouldn't he highlight the parts of the interviews when Jen reported Cody throwing Sophia over his shoulder in a forceful manner and smacking her butt at least 10 times in a row? Why didn't Harry find it notable when Jen reported that Cody shoved a blanket in Sophia's face as if to suffocate her? If Harry was trying to portray that Sophia hit her head on many occasions leading up to her collapse, why didn't he bring up the times it was reported that Sophia would bang her head on her pack and play or when throwing tantrums at Riptoad and Brandy's house? And what about the time it was reported that she fell off the counter at Riptoad's and hit her head? Expert Harry Kamerow felt it was important to bring up Stephanie Schaefer's interview, specifically noting when Cody told Jennifer that if she didn't like watching Sophia, she could pack her shit up and get out. However, I wonder why it wasn't important for this expert to bring up Cody's apparent lack of desire for watching his daughter as well. Like when it's reported that he would yell at Sophia, telling her that he hated her and that he wished he could shove her back up her mother's crotch. And then, you guys, probably the biggest lie on Harry Kamerow's report, in my opinion, is when he wrote, quote, Miss Medzie admitted to shaking Sophia twice in November of 2013, end quote. Y'all, this is an expert opinion. Jennifer never admitted to shaking Sophia ever in November, let alone twice. How is this guy still practicing? This is a huge lie in this case, and it was never brought up in court. None of Jennifer's retained attorneys addressed this bold-faced lie. Later on in this bogus report, in my opinion, Kamerow mentions that Sophia was acting normal at 9:30 p.m. on November 14, 2013, and that Sophia was acting normally on the morning of November 15. This is so misleading. Let's go back to 9:30 p.m. on November 14. According to statements provided by Cody and Jen, Sophia was either asleep in the car at that time or having her diaper changed and placed in her pack and play for bed at that time. And on the morning of November 15, Sophia was only awake for around 10 minutes prior to her collapse. How can it be determined that she was acting normally when all she did was walk from her bedroom to the family room, sit on her potty chair, lay down, and Jen dress her? In the paragraph where Harry Kamerow states that he reviewed multiple microscopic slides in this case, he also writes, quote, the child's injuries were proximate to November 15, 2013, i.e. within 24 hours of her acute presentation, end quote. Now, with that being said, let's get to his final page of the report where he puts everything together and gives his summary. I will read it in part. Quote, This child's severe intracranial hemorrhage is due to trauma. The fact that Sophia was seen by her father at 5 o'clock in the morning, sleeping comfortably in her normal state of health, and was obtuned by 7:43 hours clearly indicates that she experienced severe trauma sometime between 5 and 7:43 hours on November 15, 2013. It simply flies in the face of reality to attribute her multiple bruises from multiple vectors and extensive intracranial hemorrhage to simply falling from an upright position onto the floor or even taking a blow against the edge of a coffee table in one vector. The only plausible explanation to this child's injuries is assault. She was symptomatic in terms of intense head pain within multiple minutes, greater than 1 minute and less than 10 minutes, after she suffered the injuries. She sustained severe head trauma due to the assault and became symptomatic within multiple minutes after the assault. End quote. One paragraph earlier, Kamerow wrote that Sophia's injuries happened within 24 hours of her collapse on November 15. And now he's saying it occurred 1 to 10 minutes after the injuries. He closed his report with, quote, Sophia's cause of death is global hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and her manner of death is homicide. Please note that I hold the above opinions with a reasonable degree of medical and scientific certainty. Finally, I reserve the right to append my above opinions if further information/documents become available for my review. I hope the above discussion helps in your understanding of the death of Sophia Margaret Hoffman. Sincerely, Harry N. Kamerow. End quote. What the fuck? None of this was brought up in court by Robert Donaldson, the guy that was paid thousands of dollars to represent Jennifer Medzie and fight for her innocence. I have said it before and I will say it again. I would never, ever hire Robert Donaldson as a defense attorney. In fact, listen to this. On Wednesday, March 26, 2025, I sent this email to Robert Donaldson. Quote, Good afternoon, Mr. Donaldson. I'm an investigative reporter and a victim's advocate. I have been researching Jennifer Medzie's case for a few months now, and I'm hoping to speak with you in a recorded interview regarding your representation of her. I have received thousands of pages of discovery, police interviews, both audio and video, trial transcripts, medical records, autopsy photos, and more. I even have the original copies of your trial notes. I have discovered some very alarming documents and interviewed some of the key witnesses in this case. Please let me know if you're willing to speak with me and what days and times are best for you. Thank you for your consideration, Lindsay Ann. End quote. After hearing nothing back for nearly a month, I sent him another email on April 24th, 2025. Quote, Mr. Donaldson, I wrote you a while ago regarding your representation of Jennifer Medzie in November of 2017 and never heard back. While reading Harry Kamerow's 6-page expert opinion, I discovered numerous lies, as well as some concerning omissions in the report that were not brought up or questioned by you in court. Why was Sophia history of a large head circumference and the letter from Dr. Grout stating that she may need to be seen by a neurologist if she continued to measure at or above the 90th percentile never brought up in court? The letter is attached. At birth, Sophia's head circumference was measured to be in the 97th percentile. At 2 months and 12 days, she was in the 85th percentile. 4 months and 20 days, 97th percentile. At 6 months and 26 days old, her head was measured to be above the 97th percentile. And then on May 2nd, 2012, at the developmental clinic, Sophia's head circumference was noted to be 46 centimeters, which is above the 97th percentile. This is the day Dr. Richard Grout requested Sophia's head circumference be measured every month. The next time her head circumference was measured was nearly 7 months later at her well visit check, and her head size was listed as 49 centimeters, which is significantly above the 97th percentile. All percentages are based on the World Health Organization Child Growth Standards. I also noted that you did not address that in court. According to her autopsy report, Sophia's neck and spine were unremarkable. How can this be if she was, quote, shaken to death, end quote? Please let me know your thoughts and if you're willing to speak with me on a recorded line. Regards, Lindsay Turner, #FreeMedzie, end quote. And then, nearly a month later, on May 24th, 2025, I received an email from Robert Donaldson. Quote, Miss Turner, I am willing to speak with you about the Jennifer Medzie case. Obviously, it was a very sad case for all parties involved. I'll be limited as to what I can talk about, given attorney Addie client privilege, and I'll answer questions as best I can. I've been made aware that you've made some derogatory statements about my representation of Medzie. It's okay, as I know you, the defendant, and her parents wished for a better outcome, as did I. The good news is that we beat a first-degree murder charge. I sought a manslaughter charge at the worst. But it wasn't the view of the jury. Please contact me via email or my office phone, and I will see how to best set up an interview. Addie Donaldson. Derogatory statements? No, Addie Donaldson. The statements I'm exposing are the facts. There is a difference between derogatory and factual. What I am doing is showing the public how you represented a client of yours, Jennifer Medzie. I am reading directly from court transcripts. And the fact is, you, Robert Donaldson, failed to bring any experts to the stand to negate the prosecution's experts. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to bring up Sophia's history of a large head circumference. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to let the jury know that Sophia's neck and spine were intact with no fractures or dislocations. You, Robert Donaldson, allowed Pennsylvania State Trooper Kimberly Ronan to give her opinion of what happened to Sophia to the jurors. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to question why Jennifer's interview at the jail on August 25th, 2016 was not recorded. The one that your client insists she was coerced into a false confession. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to point out the many, many falsehoods written in Harry Kamerow's expert report. You, Robert Donaldson, failed to question Adelaide Eichmann on how she was trained to know that 2 bruises on the side of someone's head are a result from being shaken. You, Robert Donaldson, allowed the judge to bring up the term shaken baby syndrome to the jury. You, Robert Donaldson, failed Jennifer Medzie. And you, Robert Donaldson, failed baby Sophia. Those are the facts. Anyway, after a few emails back and forth, we scheduled an interview for Monday, June 2nd, 2025 at 2 p.m. 2 days before our call, I received this email from Donaldson. Quote, Lindsay, I think I'm still good for Monday. I have one appointment at 1 that should be 15 to 30 minutes, but that's it. If you can you let me know what you'd like to discuss in terms of bullet points? As I have to think back, as Jennifer Medzie's case was some time ago and hundreds of clients ago. Of course, I remember Jennifer's case, but if you would like me to focus on any certain areas, it may be helpful. In interviews on cases that matter, that I've given interviews to media like Sandusky and Ray Grikar, I think a heads up may be helpful, but I'm good either way. I can give you 30 to 45 minutes. Again, I may not be able to answer questions on everything you may be interested in, but I will be as forthright as I'm able to be. Thanks, Addie Donaldson, end quote. I responded with these bullet points. Your decision for not having called any experts to the stand, your decision to not discuss Sophia's history of a large head circumference, and the autopsy not showing any trauma to her neck and spine, why you allowed the jury to hear Trooper Ronan's opinion without an objection, as well as Ammerman discussing shaken baby syndrome in front of the jury, your thoughts on Harry Kamerow's 6-page report, your thoughts about shaken baby syndrome now, 9 years after the trial. And then, on Monday, June 2nd, the day of our scheduled interview, at 9:24 a.m., Robert Donaldson canceled on me. But he offered to reschedule for the following Monday at the same time. Okay, fine. Monday, June 9, 2025 at 2 p.m. it is. He said he'll be in his South Carolina office, and he gave me his mobile phone number and told me to have a good week. Yes, he used the term mobile phone. Fast forward to Monday, June 9. I was checking my email periodically, anticipating a cancellation from Donaldson. However, to my surprise, I never received one. In fact, I have not heard a word from Robert Donaldson since his last email sent to me on June 2nd, 2025, confirming our meeting and providing me with his mobile phone number. Yeah, it appears that he has ghosted me. I called his mobile phone number at 2 p.m. on Monday, June 9. It rang 2 times, and then I was sent to voicemail. I texted him, letting him know that I tried calling and to let me know if we needed to reschedule. And then I tried calling again at 2:15 that same day. Same thing happened. 2 rings and sent to voicemail. Now, you guys, I fully understand that Robert Donaldson has zero obligation to speak with me and owes me nothing. And honestly, I assumed something like this would happen. But this just shows his professionalism, or lack thereof, in my opinion. I sent Robert Donaldson an email on the 10th and 11th, checking in and making sure that he was all right. I am hoping that Addie Donaldson is okay and that he is just ghosting me. If there was an emergency, then again, I hope everything is all right. Next time on Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors, the lead detective, Pennsylvania State Trooper David Patrick, is the final witness for the prosecution called to the stand. So many people failed Sophia Margaret Hoffman. However, as of this episode, Jennifer Medzie is still the only person to be convicted for this sweet baby girl's death. She is currently serving her 9th year, sitting in SCI Cambridge for a 20 to 40 year sentence for 3rd-degree murder. Thank you for your support. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors. It's a free and easy way to help get more awareness out about the corruption happening throughout this country. I appreciate you.